Turbulence rattled the aeroplane as it soared through dark clouds. But that didn't bother Emily and Sarah, best friends since childhood. They had weathered storms far worse than this. Seated side by side in the economy cabin, they were on their way to a week-long tropical vacation, a much-needed escape from the monotony of their everyday lives. Sarah glanced out the window, her stomach tightening as flashes of lightning illuminated the endless black sky. Emily, unfazed, chuckled softly, nudging her.
Come on, Sarah, relax. We're almost out of the storm, Emily reassured.
Her voice laced with confidence.
Just imagine us sipping cocktails on the beach in a few hours.
Sarah nodded, but couldn't shake the growing sense of unease that had settled in her chest. The moment they boarded, it wasn't just the turbulence. Something felt wrong. The flight attendants seemed off, their smiles forced and strained. There was an odd tension among the passengers, like a current of fear humming beneath the surface. Sarah tried to push the thoughts away, but they gnawed at her, persistent. Suddenly, the plane lurched violently. The overhead lights flickered before plunging the cabin into darkness. Gasps and cries filled the air, followed by the twisted voice of the captain over the intercom.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. We are experiencing some unexpected weather conditions.
Emily squeezed Sarah's hand, trying to calm her. But Sarah could feel her friend's pulse quicken. The plane dipped again, this time more dramatically. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears, and a cold sweat broke out across her skin. The cabin lights flickered back on, casting a sickly glow over the worried faces around them. The plane straightened out, and for a moment it seemed the worst had passed. Then came the announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your co-pilot speaking. Unfortunately, it appears we have lost contact with air traffic control. We are working on restoring communication. In the meantime, please stay calm.
Lost contact.
Sarah's stomach churned. She looked at Emily, who was now pale, her earlier bravado slipping away.
What does that even mean? Lost contact.
Emily didn't answer. Instead, she stared ahead, her eyes fixated on the flight attendant at the front of the cabin. The attendant was standing perfectly still, unmoved as the plane shook violently with turbulence, her face blank as she looked straight ahead. A passenger a few rows ahead stood up, clearly panicked.
What's going on? Why have we lost contact? Are we safe?
The flight attendant didn't answer. She remained frozen in place, her face expressionless. A few other passengers began murmuring anxiously, their fear growing with every second of silence. Sarah glanced toward the cockpit door, which had been shut since takeoff. The plane dipped again. This time, the lights went out completely, plunging them into total darkness. A wave of panic rippled through the cabin. People shouted, grabbed for loved ones, and desperately reached for the flight attendants, who remained eerily still.
Emily, what is going on?
Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Before Emily could answer, the intercom crackled to life once more.
Please remain calm. This flight is no longer under human control.
Sarah's blood ran cold.
What? What does that mean?
She stammered, heart racing. When she looked into Emily's eyes, something in her froze. Emily's expression was blankly calm.
Emily?
Sarah whispered, her voice trembling.
Are you okay?
Emily turned slowly, her eyes locking onto Sarah's. Her voice was twisted.
Don't worry, Sarah. Everything is going to be fine. Soon.
What are you talking about?
She stammered, but Emily didn't respond. She simply turned her head back toward the front of the cabin, her gaze blank and unblinking. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. She glanced around the cabin, dread creeping up her spine. The passengers around her were slowly succumbing to the same eerie calm, their faces losing their panic, their expressions becoming vacant and glassy-eyed, just like Emily's. Frantic, Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up, staggering down the aisle. The flight attendants were still frozen in place, their eyes staring straight ahead, devoid of life. She pushed toward the cockpit, banging on the door.
What's going on? Please, someone answer me.
As she stood there, something grabbed her from behind. Emily's arms locked around her like a vice, pulling her back into her seat.
Don't fight it, Sarah. We're going home.
With one final struggle, Sarah twisted in Emily's grip, her eyes widening in horror as she saw what was happening outside the window. Through the turbulence and the storm, a vast, shadowy shape loomed in the distance, a structure that wasn't part of any airport. Something cold, metallic, and inhuman. And that's when Sarah realized this wasn't a flight to a vacation. This wasn't even a flight on Earth. As the darkness outside swallowed the plane, Sarah's scream was the last sound heard before the cabin fell into eerie silence. All passengers now united in perfect, terrifying stillness. The voice on the intercom echoed one last time.
Welcome home.
The plane vanished into the void,